Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. Am I the a-hole for not giving my sister half of her inheritance? My grandpa gave me a huge inheritance and didn't give any to my sister. In his will, he wrote, "Sister was a jerk, she doesn't deserve it." For context, she never visited him. She did once after finding out about his huge inheritance. I never knew he was rich. He never told me. He did have a nice house. Sometimes he told me that I will be rewarded for helping him out so much. I thought maybe he was talking about karma or something, but never knew about this. My sister freaked out, demanded half of the inheritance and said that she will sue me. I don't have any need for the inheritance, financially stable, but I am thinking of donating it to charity. My sister is, on the other hand, in a massive loan and used to think that the inheritance will save her. Now, I don't want to give her the money against my grandpa's wishes, but she is going in depression with the whole loan. Reddit, am I the a-hole? Information. My grandpa told everyone to keep it a secret from me, except my sister, who told it to me a few days before he died. Couldn't keep it a secret in her tummy, I suppose. He wanted it to be like the sad ending of a movie, I guess. I would need to use 50% of the inheritance to pay off my sister's loan if I wanted to. You're not the a-hole, OP. Your grandpa left you his inheritance and he purposefully wrote your sister out of it. And from what you said, he sounded like your sister never really had a relationship with him. If she doesn't, then why does she want his money now? I think it's only fair to expect an inheritance from someone you're close to and have a relationship with. I would say don't give your sister money from your grandpa's inheritance to pay off her loans. Your grandpa wouldn't have wanted that. If you do want to help her, because she's your sister, give her some of your money. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. It would be an insult to grandpa and all the kindness you showed him to give her any money. I say invest the money and donate part of the investment to charity. That way you can continually contribute to charity while still having the money in case of an emergency or if needed. Not the a-hole. You should put the money away and use it for your children or your retirement later in life. Your sister does not deserve anything, and the will was very clear, so her suing will result in her loss. She made her own choices in life and got herself into the situation she is in. It is not your responsibility to save her. Doing so will only make her think she can take advantage of you or bully you into those situations more. Absolutely not the a-hole, OP. Your grandfather gave you a gift of his own accord. You owe absolutely nothing to your sister, or anyone else, quite frankly. I could be wrong, but if your sister has a massive loan now, odds are that she'll have more debts in the future, despite being able to pay it off with whatever money she wants from you. Don't give her the money. That said, I probably wouldn't give it all to charity, but that's just me. I would put a good chunk of it into savings for the future, because you never know when you'll need it. Good luck, OP. Story 2. Am I the a-hole for not fixing my boyfriend's watch that I can't afford to fix and breaking his trust? To start, I'm in college and 22 female. My boyfriend never went to college, he just turned 21 male now. His family has a lot of money while mine didn't, so he doesn't really have to go to college. But I do, because my family is middle class and can't afford to give me any allowance my whole life. Money is tight for me, is what I'm trying to say. 2 weeks ago, my boyfriend was going to go out of the country with some friends and needed me to see if his passport was in the safe while he was out doing something, so he told me the code and I looked. He has an expensive watch collection and he never really lets me take pictures of them or look at them, so while I was looking for the passport, I took out one of the watches, the most expensive one, lucky me, and I accidentally dropped it on the hard floor in our closet. And the glass broke from it hitting wrong. I started crying and I called my sister and asked her what to do, and she said to just leave it and tell him later. So I put it back into the box and back into the safe. He got back from his trip a week ago A few days went by and he took out the watch and saw that it was broken and said, "What the F happened to my watch?" I told him what happened. He was pissed that I touched his stuff without permission, etc. Told me that the watch was one of 30 ever made and said that I would have to pay to get it repaired. He says it's going to cost around $2,500 at least, and maybe a little bit more. I can't afford that at all, and he knows that. $2,500 is nothing to him. I told him there is no way that I can afford it. He started going on saying that pieces of the crystal can get inside the movement and ruin the watch, and that I'll be lucky if it's just the crystal that's broken. I started crying and he just left, took his watch box and watch and said goodbye. Now he isn't answering my FaceTimes and he's been gone for 3 days now and hasn't come back for anything or tried to talk to me. Am I the a-hole for this? My sister doesn't think so because he can afford to fix it on his own. And I was just looking, not trying to show it to someone else that he doesn't know. But I really feel like I might be, but I can't really help it because I can't afford to do this as much as I want to fix it for him. You're the a-hole, OP, for a lot of reasons. The first will be the fact that you're not taking any responsibility for your actions. You went into the safe, saw the watches, and decided to touch them, even though your boyfriend told you not to. You also keep saying you don't have the money to fix it, but your boyfriend does, so he should do it, but you broke his watch. A very expensive one. If you know you're not as rich as he is, why would you touch his things? Your sister is wrong. Just because you can't afford to fix it doesn't mean you shouldn't. I don't know how your relationship will go from here because I totally understand why your boyfriend is upset. Now for some comments. Don't blame the damn floor. You bloody dropped it. Are you that desperate to shift the blame? Ridiculous. There is no way in this scenario you're not the a-hole. It was an accident. However, you are 100% responsible. What's worse is you didn't even have the decency to own up to it in the first place. Get a second or third job and pay your debt. You're the a-hole. You weren't allowed to touch them. You touched and broke it. If you can't afford to replace it or fix it, don't touch it. You should have told him when it happened. I get that you can't afford to fix it, but because that's the case, like I said before, you shouldn't have touched to begin with. You disrespected his wishes, then lied by omission about breaking it. I wouldn't be surprised if your relationship ended over this. You broke his trust and showed absolutely zero respect for him and his possessions. You're the a-hole. He asked you to do him a favor and you went snooping through his expensive watch collection, a collection he doesn't want you going through. You broke his watch. You are responsible for fixing it or replacing it. If you can't afford to do so, figure something out. Ask him to pay to repair it and pay him back. Dip into savings if you have any. Take a loan. Don't start crying and act like he's in the wrong here. The way you talk about his family, having money is really condescending as well. It sounds like you look down on him for not having gone to college and are judging him for having rich parents. Story 3. Am I the a-hole for kicking my sister's kids out of my house? I'm 35 and child-free. My sister is 33 and a mother of 3 kids, between 6 to 10 years of age, 2 boys and a girl. I've always had a strained relationship with my sister and actually avoid being around her kids, as I don't really like kids in general. Yesterday, my sister came over unannounced with her kids. She told me her brother-in-law had met with an accident and she and her hubby needed to go see him in the hospital. She said she needed me to watch her kids for the evening as our parents are out of town. I told her to get a sitter, but she said she couldn't get one on such short notice. I refused again, telling her I had never babysat before and was looking forward to a quiet evening. First, she told me she was just leaving them there. I told her I would call a child welfare committee and would report her for abandonment if she pulled something like that. She begged and pleaded and actually began to fake cry. As I didn't want to provide my neighbors with entertainment, I reluctantly agreed. At first, things were fine. The kids were a bit rambunctious, but still somewhat tolerable. They ate their dinner without starting a food fight, and then I left them in the living room to watch a movie. I was in the study getting some work done. I had brought my cat and dog in there with me as I wanted to keep them safe from the kids. Suddenly, I heard a loud crash. I rushed to the living room and found my precious antique clock that I kept on the mantelpiece on the ground in pieces. It was well worth over $1,000 in USD. I'm not American. I was furious, of course, and asked how the hell this happened. The eldest kid incoherently explained that they had taken it down to look at it, and then the younger two were fighting over it and dropped it. Cue ear-shattering wailing from the other two, blaming one another for the demise of my prized possession. I had had enough. I called my brother-in-law and told him to come over immediately and get his spawn out of my home. He asked what was wrong, and I told him what they had done. He had the gall to tell me I was overreacting. One of the kids, I think the youngest, had started bawling now. I told my brother-in-law to come at once and get his kids. He said he was on his way. He came to get the kids but didn't leave before lecturing me on the importance of family. I told him to get lost. This morning I received angry texts and phone calls from my parents and several relatives asking how I could be so heartless and how could I value a clock more than my niece and nephews. I told them I don't care what they think because the way I see it, I was completely within my rights in kicking them out. They should just be grateful that I've decided not to make my sister and brother-in-law pay for it. Judging from the fact that they have 3 kids, they probably can't afford it. I want to know what Reddit thinks. Am I the a-hole or are they? Edit. Allow me to tell you exactly why my relationship with my sister is strained. It's because my sister has always been jealous of my success. For example, last year, I took a vacation to Spain and posted about it on Facebook. My sister is a housewife, and her hubby had just lost his job. Apparently, they were really struggling financially. Sister called me and berated me for having fun with my hard-earned money and flaunting it while they didn't know if they would make it to next month, with having to ask family for help. She also expected me to offer her some cash, because family. When I told her that she and her husband would be better off if they had fewer kids, she actually got angry and yelled at me. This is just one example of my sister's entitlement. Some of you said I shouldn't have left the kids alone. Well, before I left, I told them very clearly to keep their hands off of my stuff. My mom just let me know that my sister's brother-in-law will be fine. He was driving under influence and has a dislocated shoulder and 2 broken ribs. And after much consideration, I've decided to sue. That clock was rare and expensive. Now for some comments. You know what? In my opinion, you're the a-hole. Not for being upset about your clock and not because you don't want to babysit, but because your sister was struggling with a family emergency, begged you for help, and after you accepted the responsibility, you left very young kids by themselves with no supervision and expected them to just figure it out. Then when something bad happened, you flipped out at the curious children and called their parents to pick them up and made them feel shitty even though you had left them alone. You're the a-hole. Their family was in the hospital and you couldn't watch the kids for one night. The clock breaking is also your fault. You should have been supervising the kids if they were being rambunctious, or at least stayed in the room to get your work done, but you left them alone. They are young children, not teens. You're suing because you were supposed to be watching the kids and they accidentally broke something. Oh man, I would love to see you argue you weren't the negligent one here. You're the a-hole. First off, you sound like a pretentious a-hole, especially by your comments about your sister's financial state and kids. Not to mention she told you she had an emergency and that a family member was in an accident and she had to beg you to watch them for a short while. Really? You were their last option here. Second, you left 3 children between the ages of 6 and 10 unsupervised in your house. You literally holed yourself up in another room with your pets to avoid them. You didn't talk to them about house rules or anything. You're just as much at fault here as the kids.